Hi, I'm Don Fendon, and this is my daughter Donna Fendon, and we office together. And Donna, I want you to explain to the people that are seeing this video what you do or what you advise a potential client to do.
So if you just got injured on the job, my first recommendation would be that you need to tell your employer that you were injured on the job, preferably in writing, and make sure to take a copy of that so that you have it for your records. You also need to see a physician. If you don't see a physician, you haven't been injured. That is what essentially they believe in workers' comp. So you need to see a doctor right away. You also need to have your doctor fill out a physician's report of injury, and you also need to fill out a worker's report of injury for yourself as well. And that actually can be done online, electronically with the Industrial Commission, or you can actually go and file it in person. I would definitely recommend filing it online electronically and keeping a copy of that, or going down and filing it in person to make sure that you have a copy for your records.
Is that at the Industrial Commission at 800 West Washington?
Yes, the Industrial Commission of Arizona at 800 West Washington at Phoenix, Arizona.
Now, when should someone see an attorney for their claim?
So a lot of times people get put through the ringer in workers' comp. They get put through to the carrier's doctors. They have to deal with everything the carrier's doctors tell them to do. A lot of times they're not getting paid on time. They're not getting the treatment they need. And that's when you really need a workers' comp lawyer. You need someone to be on your side. Make sure you get to the right physician. Make sure that you see the right doctor and have the right treatment. Make sure you're getting paid on time, because a lot of times people don't know. Workers' comp is kind of like a foreign language, I think, to most people. Most people don't know what you're supposed to do when you get injured on the job. So an attorney can help guide you and put you in the right direction and make sure that you get the benefits that you're entitled to, especially when we're talking about a permanent award. That's very important.
And a permanent award comes into play when somebody becomes medically stationary, or what?
Yes, when someone becomes medically stationary. And that's the question I get asked a lot by my clients is, what the heck does medically stationary mean? And I always tell them it means as good as you're going to get. So workers' comp is not required to get you back to 100% if they can't get you back to 100%. So essentially, if that does occur and you end up with permanent impairment, you might be entitled to a permanent award. And depending on what your injury is, it might be a permanent award for the rest of your life.
And there's a difference between extremity permanent awards and whole body permanent awards.
Yes, I like to call them the trunk injuries, or the injuries of just your hand or anything like that. It's in workers' comp in Arizona, your body parts decide what your permanent award is. It's very odd. Whatever body part you injure decides what your permanent award ends up to be.
Okay, and there's what they call scheduled and unscheduled. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct. Scheduled and unscheduled. And scheduled awards are basically, it depends on what body part it is and how much perm you have. When we're talking about an unscheduled award, those are the awards that you could potentially be entitled to a monthly award for the rest of your life.
That's what you call the trunk injuries.
Yes, the trunk injuries, because it's body parts that essentially are on your trunk. So it's your back, your hips, your shoulders. Those are what I call the trunk injuries.
You can also get permanent award from psychiatric problems, correct?
Correct.
And post-concussion.
Yes. Yeah. Traumatic brain injuries.
Yes.
Yeah. TBIs.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's helpful if they come to an attorney like yourself, because you'll direct them to the proper medical care.
Well, exactly, because most doctors, they don't know, unless they've worked in workers' comp before with workers' comp patients, that they have to declare someone medically stationary and rate them with permanent impairment. So a lot of times what will happen is someone's going to their regular physician and they're medically stationary and the doctor says that, but they don't rate them. And so then they end up without a permanent award just because their doctor didn't know how to properly rate them and didn't know they had to rate them. So that's why it's really important you end up with a doctor who really knows the workers' comp system and knows what they have to do for you.
And there's a lot of physicians here in Arizona that don't realize that.
No, not at all. Yeah, a lot of them.
Right. So they have to know the 6th edition of the AMA guidelines and what it means.
Oh, correct. And then as of this year, we got into the ODG, which is the Occupational Disability Guidelines. And so your doctor also has to know those now. And most physicians don't know that.
Yeah, but most of the physicians that do know that have really studied that and have had lots of industrial cases.
Correct. Yes. Or most of them work for the insurance carriers.
Right. and you've got to know who's working for the insurance carriers and who is more down the road middle.
Yes, claimant oriented, or yes, more down the road middle.
And you know, as a claimant's lawyer, who is down the middle or who is pro-claimant versus who's insurance carrier.
Oh, correct. Yeah, we see these names all the time. It's the usual players. So we know who's a good doctor, who's a bad doctor. We know.
In terms of how they testify
Correct.
and treat claimants.
Correct.
All right. That's very good. And we really appreciate you sitting down and discussing this. And Donna has become an expert in this field. And you will be shortly entitled to take
You can just start over on that part.
Okay, and you will be eligible to test for the certification in workers' comp for the state bar, correct?
Correct. And I mean, it's a big deal. I've learned from the best, which is you, Dad. I mean, you've been doing this since 1972. This is, I mean, I learned from an expert.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you can't get better than him.
And I would like to say that you're an excellent lawyer in this regard. You have a good reputation, and you've been out of law school 5 years, and everybody has good compliments about you.
Oh, well, thank you, Dad. I appreciate that. Learned it all from you.
Oh, thank you.